Nick Dwyer here for the 10th inning, giving you another episode of This Day in Sports History. In yesterday's episode, we saw the great one, Wayne Gretzky, score his 700th goal in the NHL. We don't have anything like that today, but we do have some baseball to talk about, we have some more college football to talk about, and some more NFL to get into. So if y'all enjoy this video, leave a like on it. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Let's get to it. This Day in Sports History. We'll start off in baseball in 1889, and the Spalding baseball tourists would play their final game in Australia, with the Chicago's winning by a score of 5-0. Move to 1904 in hockey, go to the Stanley Cup, and Ottawa HC would defeat Winnipeg Rowing Club 2-0 to win the Challenge Series 2-1. Back to baseball in 1942, Rogers Hornsby would become the 14th player selected to join the Baseball Hall of Fame, join Cooperstown. Move to football now in 1970, we had both the AFL Championship and the NFL Championship as part of the 1969 season. Start with the AFL. The Kansas City Chiefs would defeat the Oakland Raiders 17-7 thanks to 4 interceptions forced by the Chiefs defense. Then at the NFL Championship, the Minnesota Vikings would defeat the Cleveland Browns 27-7. Stay with the NFL, this time in 1976 at the AFC and NFC Championships. Start with the AFC, the Pittsburgh Steelers would defeat the Oakland Raiders 16-10. Then at the NFC Championships, the Dallas Cowboys would defeat the Los Angeles Rams 37-7. Stay in 1976 in tennis at the Australian Open, and Mark Edmondson would upset John Newcombe 6-7, 6-3, 7-6, 6-1 to win his first and only Grand Slam singles title. 1 year later in 1977, we would have history in Major League Baseball as Mary Shane would be hired by the Chicago White Sox as the first woman TV play-by-play announcer. Back to tennis in 1981 at the Australian Open, Brian Teacher would win his first and only Grand Slam singles title, defeating Kim Warwick 7-5, 7-6, 6-3. 5 years later, go to the NFL in 1986. In the playoffs, Los Angeles Rams running back Eric Dickerson would score twice and run for a postseason record 248 yards in a 20-0 victory over the Dallas Cowboys. Go to the World Swimming Championships now in 1991, and 12-year-old Chinese diver Fu Mingjia would win the 10-meter platform, becoming the youngest world champion in the history of any aquatic event. Stay in 1991, go to the Hopman Cup, and Yugoslavia would defeat the United States by a score of 2-1 to win their first title. 1 year later in 1992, move to the NBA, and Boston Celtics' Robert Parrish would become the 5th player in NBA history to record 2,000 blocks. 5 years later at the 1997 Hopman Cup, the USA would defeat South Africa to win their first title with a 2-1 victory. 2 years later in college football, we would have the first edition of the BCS National Championship. Number 1 Tennessee would defeat number 2 Florida State 23-16 at that year's Fiesta Bowl. 1 year later, in 2000, at the second edition of the National Championship game, at the Sugar Bowl, number 1 Florida State would defeat number 2 Virginia Tech 46-29. Stay in 2000 in the NBA, and Mark Cuban would purchase a majority stake in the Dallas Mavericks for $285 million. Finally, in 2000, in the NFL, a day after accepting the head coaching position for the New York Jets, Bill Belichick would resign and, well, the rest was history. Moved back to the NBA in 2001, and Michael Jordan, playing for the Washington Wizards, would become the 4th player in NBA history to score 30,000 points, after he would hit a free throw in the second quarter of an 89-83 victory over the Chicago Bulls. 2 years later, at the 2003 Hopman Cup, the United States pair of Serena Williams and James Blake would defeat Australian pair Alicia Molik and Leighton Hewitt 6-3, 6-2 for a 3-0 victory and the Americans' second title of the Hopman Cup. Move to 2004 at the National Championship game in college football, number 2 LSU would defeat number 1 Oklahoma at the Sugar Bowl 21-14. And 1 year later, Oklahoma would get disappointed once again at the National Championship at the Orange Bowl. Number 1 USC would defeat number 2 Oklahoma 55-19. USC would later vacate the championship though. Our final college football championship game in 2006 at the Rose Bowl, number 2 Texas would defeat number 1 USC 41-38. 2 years later, go back to the Hoffman Cup in 2008, and the American pair of Serena Williams and Marty Fish would defeat the Serbian pair of Novak Djokovic and Jelena Jankovic 7-6, 7-2 to win the USA's 5th title. 1 year later, moved to 2009 in darts, and Phil Taylor would win with a 7-1 victory over Raymond van Barneveld to win his 12th PDC World Darts title. Back to the bowl games in 2010, at the Fiesta Bowl, number 6 Boise State would defeat number 3 TCU 17-10. Then in 2011 at the Sugar Bowl, number 6 Ohio State would defeat number 8 Arkansas 31-26. Our final bowl game in 2012 at the Orange Bowl, number 23 West Virginia would defeat number 14 Clemson 70-33. Moved to 2014 now at the Hoffman Cup, and France would win their first title with a 6-0, 6-2 victory over Poland to win 2-1. Moved to 2015, back with darts, and Gary Anderson would defeat 16-time world champion Phil Taylor 7-6 to win his first PDC World Darts Championship. And this one's cheating a little bit, but the video wasn't out on time, so we will end today's video off in 2021, and the Boston Red Sox would announce the hiring of Bianca Smith as a minor league coach. Now, while female coaches have been growing in numbers in recent years, Smith would become the first African American woman to occupy such a position. So there you have it. That's what happened on this day in sports history. If I left anything out, I do apologize. If I mispronounced any names, I also apologize. But I'll see everybody tomorrow for Nick Wire and the 10th inning.